The future outlook of the XRPL with David Schwartz at Apex 2023, and again, posted 13 days ago. I've gone ahead and fast forwarded to some key parts. And then after we get into some of these key parts, I'm going to give you some key takeaways about what he's talking about. It's some good stuff, all right? So Ripple XRP is your thing. Please smash that like, and let's go ahead and jump into this. Let's get this presented from the one and only David Schwartz. Yes, doing it big. All right, here we go.
So I want to go back to the beginning of why we are all here. The XRP ledger is constantly innovating, and you all are on that journey with us. The XRP ledger features fast, cheap, and scalable transactions. You can confirm a transaction with finality in about 5 seconds for much less than a penny. That's a time scale in which a human being doesn't get bored or annoyed. I know it's surprising to think how important that was. In the early days, we thought 30 minutes was super fast. But it's not when a human being is waiting for it, and it's not when you have a chain of dependencies. And you can get that confirmation with high reliability and predictability. There is not the variation in confirmation times that you see in other blockchains. And again, this is all from the design back in 2012. We focused on payments, and that is our historical legacy. Payments are at the core of everything that we do in this space. Everything else that you look at, and whether it's DeFi, whether it's loans, whether it's stable coins, payments are at the heart of everything. Real world asset tokenization. What are you going to do with a token? You're going to buy it, you're going to sell it, you're going to hold it. Well, 2 of those 3 things are payments. The XRP ledger's primary role, at least sort of functionally, is to be the authoritative registrar of XRP ownership, the origin of XRP, the core and root of XRP. But the XRPL ledger is much more than XRP. Since 2012, the XRP ledger has supported issued assets. These can be thought of as stable coins, legal obligations, ICOs, tokens that represent something of value. One of the first things we realized when we looked at Bitcoin was that even if you thought Bitcoin was going to take over the world, it hadn't taken over the world yet. The vast majority of the world's value wasn't in Bitcoin and wasn't accessible to the Bitcoin blockchain. There would have to be gateways. You have to connect to where the value is. People are not just going to abandon everything of value in the world and suddenly start using some new source of value. They may get there eventually, but there have to be bridges to get them there. And so the XRP ledger provided the world's first decentralized asset exchange in 2012. Nobody knew what a decentralized asset exchange was. That word didn't exist for years later. We didn't know how to describe it and talk about it, but we had it, and it worked, and it's been in continuous operation, handling real money since then to now.
All right, I'm now going to jump into the next part we have, okay? So basically, he was talking about scalability there for a brief moment. I'm going to share some key findings that I want to elaborate a little bit more in regards to Ripple's XRP and scalability, whether people agree with it or not, right? It's just me presenting, the information. Draw your own conclusion. So getting more into this, some of my notes, right? According to Ripple, XRP, the digital asset used for a cross-border payment system, no kidding, right? Consistently handles 1,500 transactions per second. However, it's been stated that they can, for instance, settle in 45 seconds, like he was stating, but XRP can scale up to 50,000 TPS to handle the same throughput as Visa. All right. Getting more into this because I don't want to just, state my notes. I want to share this. This comes from Cointelegraph. Let's jump into this. So on Cointelegraph, it says, who scales it best inside blockchain's ongoing transactions per second race? And this is in regards to that claim of 50,000 TPS. All right. So getting into this, plain as day on your screen, according to Ripple, this is not me stating it. This is Ripple. XRP, the digital asset used in the company's cross-border payment system, quote, consistently handles 1,500 transactions per second. And again, just like I said, can scale up to 50,000 TPS, right? With this, be able to handle the same throughput as Visa, all right? All right, so let's jump out of that for a second. Now I'm gonna get to this next part because this is, we don't want to just talk about scalability only, right? I want to jump into what David Schwartz has to share in regards to this whole thing of, excuse me for a second, the the XLS 38D cross-chain bridge standard proposal, the future of XRPL interoperability. Okay, there's two key highlights. Again, this is part of my notes that I want to get into today for you guys. So the first one is, what are cross-chain bridges and how could the XLS 38D proposal benefit, of course, us or people that are XRPL users, right? Some of us are, some of us aren't, but what's that benefit, right? And then the second thing we're going to get into, because there's a lot of other things, right? Can't get into all of it tonight. I don't want to make this 3 or 4 hours tonight. Is the importance of security in the XLS 38D cross-chain bridge standard proposal. Of course, there's some updates in regards to this. So for one, I want to jump into this. I'm going to share this with you. So if you're not clear on what some of this is, it's okay. That's why we're here to do research together, right? So bottom line is, like I shared or said here, excuse me, how is it going to benefit users? Well, cross-chain bridges are software applications that enable transactions to occur between various blockchains. Basically speaking, if someone wants to transfer crypto or any other digital asset between blockchain networks, cross-chain bridges are an essential part of the process, excuse me. There's this quote from GitHub: a bridge does not exchange assets between two ledgers. Instead, it locks assets on one ledger, the locking of the chain, basically, and represents those assets with wrapped assets on another chain, the issuing chain. A good model to remember is a box with an infinite supply of wrapped assets. This is a good analogy or explanation, right? Putting an asset from the locking chain into the box will release a wrapped asset onto the issuing chain. Putting a wrapped asset from the issuing chain back to the box will release one of the existing locking chain assets back onto the locking chain. There's no way to get assets into or out of the box. All right, what are some of the key takeaways, of course, from this cross-chain bridge standard proposal? Great question. This design proposes one server type called witness servers. And again, this is a while back, but when we get to this part that was recently shared from David Schwartz in his particular presentation of 13 days ago, it's going to give you an idea of why we're mentioning it from, I think this is roughly a year or so ago, and where we're at now. Okay, so again, here's the original proposal. I'll get to where we're at now. So basically, it talks about this one new server type, at least it was new then, called witness servers. 3 new ledger objects, 8 new transactions. I know some of this kind of sounds nerdy, but we're going to get to some of the key highlights here in a bit. The so-called door accounts will be vital in bridging transactions between chains. And this is easy to follow on this part. Door accounts represent the account on the locking chain used to put assets into a trust, or the account on the issuing chains can be used or issued to wrapped assets. Now, we are completely aware of wrapped assets. There's wrapped of Bitcoin, wrapped Ethereum, or in Mike Cornwall's case, stop pointing me out, Max, wrapped Luna Classic, right? It's okay. The introduction of a new type of server called witness servers will help provide proof that an event happened on either the locking chain or the issuing chain. Now, maybe that might be a little bit hard to follow, but listen to this. The primary function of these lightweight servers is to listen to transactions on one side of the bridge and submit attestations on the other side, affirming that a transaction on the source chain occurred. A witness server may offer attestations for one single chain, and the door account on the locking chain could potentially have different lists, the signers on the door account on the issuing chain, like again, to all this stuff. But what is interesting, like it says, to note here, is that the signing of attestation will take place on chain, requiring transaction and paying a fee by the signer. Now, again, we always talk about utility in motion. if you have the signers doing this, again, a little bit more of that utility. This highlights the need for rewarding a witness server to provide just that, signatures. Because as we know, we want things to be paid for, and we want to see that whatever was gathered in issuance gets signed. I mean, it's just as plain as day. Don't need to get really more into it and so on. So there was these proposals that happened. Let me see here. Originally, I don't know if it has a date. Okay, it wasn't last year. I thought it was last year. So February 23rd, 2023. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fast track to where we're at now. And this is back to this update from the horse's mouth, right? David Schwartz. So let's go ahead and get to this. I've already gone ahead and fast forwarded for you guys. Please smash that like, because he's going to discuss XLS38D cross-chain bridge. And like he basically states, the new XRPL standard for a cross-chain bridge that would enable interoperability between different networks, right? Ripple X. All right, please smash that like, especially if you love Ripple XRP and like the coverage. And we're going to go ahead and full screen this. Here we go.
This enables interoperability between different networks. The XLS38D proposed standard will allow tokens from one blockchain to be locked in an account on the XRP ledger, while an equivalent amount of tokens is issued on another blockchain, increasing the use cases and adoption of the XRP ledger. The team has made design changes to XLS38D to support multiple bridges per door account for libraries, explorers, witness servers, and to improve user experience. I want to take a minute to explain why I think these cross-chain bridges are important and why sidechains are important. The XRP Ledger main network is great for payments. It's the home of XRP, and you can use it for other things too. But the idea that everybody will be able to do everything that they might want to do on a single layer one is just unrealistic. No matter how much it scales, there's going to be a limit. And there's going to be people who are going to want to do higher numbers of transactions. There's going to be people who want more computing power. There's going to be people who want very specialized transactors that demand a lot of resources. There's storage that can only go around so much. And there's trade-offs with putting something on the XRP Ledger mainnet. If you put something on the XRP Ledger mainnet, every XRP Ledger mainnet node has to store and relay those transactions. And that creates a scarce resource that we can only divide so far. It's a lot, but it is not infinite. Whatever capacity it has, that's all it has. Whatever capabilities it has, there are going to have to be capabilities that it doesn't have. No layer one is ever going to be everything to everyone. And if
I'm sorry. Did David Schwartz just give us an example of how Ripple's XRP can be scarce? Did we just miss that? Hopefully we're paying attention. Let's listen to a little bit more. Here we go.
If we don't want that to be a huge downside, if we don't want that to fragment the community, what we need is the ability to have asset portability so that XRP is not limited to the XRP ledger, or other issued assets aren't limited to their home ledgers. Because if you want to build up some other function on some other ledger, you have to be able to get real value onto it. If you have to build a new token or issue a new stablecoin or just build up the sort of whole asset infrastructure from the ground up, that's going to stifle innovation. The other thing that it's great for is to be able to test out things that might be useful on the main network. I'll talk about hooks later, but hooks is a good example of something that you might not want to adopt on the main network immediately because of some of those trade-offs. No matter how good you think it has costs associated with those benefits. And it would be sort of risky in the extreme to just adopt it on the mainnet and hope that those trade-offs work out in our favor. The level of confidence that you need to have to risk harming the main network is very, very high. So these side chains through cross-chain bridges provide a ramp to be able to prove that a technology works in the real world, handling real money, show its impact to things like network stability, fees, and resource consumption, and then you can make a much stronger case for including it on the mainnet. So that's going to enable, along with some of the other things I'm going to talk about, much broader development.
All right. So obviously there's a lot more, and I'm not going to get into the whole thing about this. I mean, it's great. I mean, you're more than welcome to watch the whole thing, in your own time. But again, I was just trying to get to some of the key highlights in regards to this. So on the next particular part, David Schwartz is going to talk about EVM sidechains. Now here at Maximus Crypto, we're always talking about EVM, right? We talk about, for instance, with Polygon. We talk about it, for instance, I believe with Stellar. There's a lot of them, right? I mean, there's ZK EVM. Yeah, that would be basically Polygon. We talked about obviously some things with Stellar. But yeah, I mean, bottom line is EVM, right? What about Ripple when it comes to EVM sidechains? Why is that so significant? Well, again, we'll get into that in a bit. I want to share this report from a while back in regards to EVM. And this wasn't too far back, but basically it does come from the Crypto Basics. I'm going to share this on the screen with you guys as well. And it states here that XRP Ledger EVM sidechain gets major upgrades accessible via MetaMask wallet. Now, so for some people, like, okay, well, that's just MetaMask Max. I mean, why don't you just point that out? Hey, still a big deal, because if anything, it's going to give you a little bit of a brief example that we're going to use here in a bit, and then we'll get into the whole thing with David Schwartz. But getting more into this, it states that XRP Ledger core developer PureSys technology has dropped specific updates for the XRPL EVM sidechain, disclosing the compatibility, of course, with MetaMask. A lot of us still use MetaMask, not all of us, right? But basically, the firm posted an update in a tweet, attracting the attention of Ripple's digital currency advisor, Anthony Welfare. It says PureSys Technology said it's concluding works on the XRPL Ethereum virtual machine EVM sidechain. Now, again, for a lot of people, they still use Ethereum, and you still have a bunch of Ethereum. Maybe you have it primed and ready to go for whatever new degen play comes out, or meme coin, you name it, right? But the team noted that it has refined and expanded the sidechain capabilities it announced originally back in October 2022. According to the team, the latest improvements bring EVM sidechain closer to its mainnet launch. Like it says, it gets closer every time while you wait for the release of the XRPL EVM sidechain. Don't miss all the new improvements, and if anything, we're going to play this and why, I don't know, we should bring it to you guys, right? So it's 3.5 minutes, and it just gets right into the nitty gritty of why this is important. Please smash that like. Here we go.
Hello, XRP Ledger community. It's been a while since we announced the launch of our first EVM sidechain connected to XRP Ledger in October 2022. Since then, we've been working hard to improve, test, and extend the possibilities of the EVM sidechain that is getting closer and closer to its launch on mainnet. Let's start with the EVM sidechain, which has had huge improvements since its first version, making it much more similar to the XRPL mainnet. Significant performance improvements have been made to the network that have allowed us to reduce the block time from 5.4 seconds to 3.5 seconds on average, a very similar time to XRP Ledger. A proof of authority algorithm has been implemented for the validators, replicating a very similar governance model to the mainnet as well. Finally, the Tendermint consensus algorithm has been upgraded to Comet BFT, the newest and most powerful version. All this is already deployed and accessible with MetaMask by connecting the following network. We continue with the bridge that will connect the EVM sidechain with the main XRP Ledger network. This is the component that has received the most improvements to ensure having a bridge natively distributed and compatible with the main XRPL network. Firstly, a newly fully distributed bridge has been developed based on Ripple's XLS38D amendment, which facilitates native interoperability of the bridge through X-chain transactions. This is an essential component for its security. In the same way, the bridge can now be widely distributed, and each bridge can be operated by multiple parties, up to 32 nodes on XRPL. Bridge keys are now compatible with Amazon Web Services key storage to facilitate secure management for operators. In terms of functionality, the bridge now also allows tokens to be transferred between the main XRPL network and the EVM sidechain, so all ERC20 and IOUs are now available and interconnected in both directions. To facilitate the test, we have also included support in the faucet to directly access the EVM sidechain for all users and developers. You can try it now in seconds by going to bridge.devnet.xrpl.org and connecting the wallet. In the same way, you can also receive USDC tokens from the faucet in a single click on the 3 dots next to the wallet to transfer them to the sidechain. Finally, we're going to see the new tools that have been developed for the EVM sidechain that can be very useful for you. The main explorer can be found at evm-sidechain.xrpl.org. This allows you to see everything that happens on the network transparently as always. In this new version, it also includes verification of smart contracts that will allow you to see the content of the smart contracts that you execute. For future EVM sidechain validators, a new Explorer has been developed in the base layer that gives transparency to the management of nodes, voting, and network governance. A CLI for developers has also been created that allows you to configure and build your own EVM sidechain and your own bridges in a much simpler and more automated way. Finally, the Ganassi Safe multi-signature smart contract has been deployed in the EVM sidechain, which facilitates the management of secure accounts on the network. It has a web interface to create and manage your secure multi-sig accounts for everyone. And that's all. There are extensive security audits being conducted now on both Ripple's XLS38D amendment, as well as the EVM sidechain and the bridge to ensure their security. A new era of usability, interoperability, and possibilities for XRP Ledger is coming. Stay tuned for the latest updates.
That was cool because it just gives you that quick explanation in under 3.5 minutes. That's why I was bringing it to you guys. So on top of that, we're going to kick it back now to more of this whole topic with David Schwartz on his presentation. Again, I've gone ahead and fast forwarded it for you guys just to make it a little bit more simpler for you. So yeah, let's just go ahead and jump into that. Here we go. Pull that brand back up. All right.
One example of a sidechain is the EVM sidechain. Nice thing about the EVM sidechain is that it's easy to develop on for people who know how to develop smart contracts on EVM. Developer teams at PeerSys, they've been busy working on this blockchain in parallel with the main XRPL blockchain. It is now live on DevNet. That's where developers can test implementations before they go live on the mainnet. The sidechain is connected to that XRPL sidechain DevNet via a bridge. This is a decentralized bridge that's very important, and it uses the XLS38D cross-chain bridging functionality to bridge to that XRPL network. So that's a bridge that connects the development network to the test instance of the sidechain. The next step is going to be to adopt XLS38D on the XRPL mainnet. Once that amendment is approved by the validator community, a new EVM sidechain can be launched to the XRP Ledger mainnet, of course, as can other sidechains. All components of this solution should be production ready to handle real-world scale and real-world use cases. The solution will be a decentralized one. Nodes will be run by different XRPL community members. Really excited to bring a sort of compatible version of smart contracts to the XRP Ledger ecosystem. People already know how to develop them. There's a broad ecosystem of tools. Complementing that, of course, is hooks, which I talked a tiny bit about before. This is some work done by XRPL Labs and Wietse Wynn's team. Hooks is a bespoke light smart contract solution for the XRP Ledger, complementary to the EVM sidechain. One of the things I like the most about Hooks is that it is built in sort of the XRP Ledger spirit. The XRP Ledger, when it was developed, we could have just adopted everything Bitcoin did and been another sort of clone of Bitcoin, but we didn't. We rethought things from the ground up. We thought about decentralization. We thought about performance. We thought about making something that's sort of light. And Hooks definitely embodies that spirit. As I mentioned during my Apex keynote last year, we at Ripple are very much in support of Wietse's efforts. It's very, very cool landmark. Just recently, it passed a comprehensive security audit this year. That is extremely difficult to do for a feature this complicated. So that's, as someone who's written features of, complex features that have to pass third-party security audits, that's a very, very difficult thing to do and a very significant accomplishment and absolutely essential to risk large amounts of value. So yeah, that's a huge. Now, you can't do everything that you could do on an EVM platform with hooks, but you can do a very significant fraction of important use cases, and that's only going to grow over time. And there are a lot of downsides of sort of a Turing complete or EVM compatible sidechain that you don't have with hooks. If you think about like the way Ethereum itself works, everything about it is built to support smart contracts. There's an enormous number of trade-offs in terms of confirmation time and fees and stability and resource consumption that you have to make to support a smart contract implementation that heavy. The trade-off is that you can support very, very complicated functionality. Hooks draws a different trade-off. You can't do literally everything that you could do, but all of the important, interesting things I think you will be able to do. And in exchange, you won't have that unpredictability with fees, the resource consumption. So fantastic, fantastic work. And the other cool thing about it is Ripple had absolutely nothing to do with it. We funded some of the developers, but it's not our project. Like, they tell us great things about what they've done, and we silently applaud. That sometimes creates the perception that we're not supportive. We absolutely are. It's just, it's not our project, and we're not going to try to take it over. We're going to just watch and cheer from the sidelines, and occasionally maybe some funding if they need it.
All right, let me pause on that part real quick. I'm gonna get to the next part of what we have, which is also some pretty cool stuff. All right, give me a second. Make sure I'm not muted. All right, I'm not. All right, let's get into, a little bit more of this. So he was talking about hooks, obviously a fast forward to that. All right, I'm gonna get to this next part that needs to be mentioned. It's a little bit towards the end, obviously. And that is, hold on a second, let me just double check this real quick. All right. Yeah, this is a good part. Let me just fast forward just a moment. Oh, this is it. XRPL plugins. I want you guys to listen to this. Hold on a second. All right. Yes, he's going to talk about XRPL plugins. Now, here's my thing. We talk about Stellar. We talk about it a lot, especially when it comes to Sorbonne, being able to create, I guess you could say, like a superior smart contract to branch out like an awesome ecosystem, if you will, of all sorts of projects coming in, building not just on Stellar, but through Sorbonne. Okay. Now, I'm not stating that this is XRP doing that exact same thing, but the key thing is creating ease of access with modifiable plugins. And he's going to state here that, you don't have to, there's other languages to make this easier. It's not just exclusive to, like, hey, everybody needs to know C++, right? And again, that was a key attractive thing for developers to be able to come over on Stellar, because they didn't need to know a whole lot of code. Is this Ripple's answer, or a way of competing, if you will? Because in reality, they do compete, but my thing is I hold both, right? So I'm not going to throw a fuss about it. But is this is this Ripple's answer, right? Could very well be. Draw your own conclusion. Let me know what you think. Let's go ahead and play this as well. I think this is a big deal. And if I could just get the tab up, my bad. There we go.
XRPL plugins, these are really exciting. Right now, if you want to add a new feature to the XRP ledger, you may have to make small changes in 10 different places. That's very hard to maintain. It's hard to do. It's hard to be secure. And you have to do it in C++, because C++ is the language. This idea of plugins will mean that you can encapsulate the feature, and it might plug in a couple of different places, but the feature is sort of logically encapsulated. And that will enable people to build modules that will plug into RippleD. They don't have to be in C++. They can be in other languages. And that'll make it easier for people who aren't familiar with C++ to develop these features. It'll also be nice for people developing features for sidechains and so on. If every sidechain has 57,000 patches to the XRP ledger software, it's going to be a mess. So they need to be modular. We'll support Rust, Python, C++, and JavaScript, we hope, just in the beginning. And this will make it easier. Again, building sidechains will be so much easier when you don't have to make changes in a large number of different places. And there's nothing worse than changing software in a large number of different places. Encapsulating all your changes in one place just makes that development so much easier. Being able to say, here's the module that does this thing that we want to do, instead of here's the 70 things you need to change. And of course, if I make 70 changes and someone else makes 70 changes, they may conflict. If I build a module and someone else builds a module, they won't conflict.
Just take a pause to listen to what you just said there. I mean, I don't know if everybody's following this. So one of the key things is, modules and so on, and just be able to make one key update that blankets all of that. You can't, he's right. You can't have it where, hey, let's contact everybody and let's have this developer from XYZ project do an update to make this compatible, and this one to make it compatible. No, you have to have it blanket the whole thing. And that's a good thing, because you want to know something, these side chains being able to be connected to, for instance, the XRPL, it shows that it's going to allow those to be continuously thriving ecosystems. I mean, some of them might not be. Let's just be, let's just throw that out. Some might be, some might not be. But you don't want to set up other projects for disaster. This meets that solution. That's a good thing. That's why we point out. Let's play a little bit more in regards to this.
Huge, huge innovation. Always improving performance and scalability, throughput improvements, reduced memory consumption. This is mostly coming from Ripple. Updates.
All right, so earlier we mentioned scalability. That was at the very beginning. This is him outlining a little bit more in regards to scalability. So I know I said that was the end about scalability, but in reality, he's touching bases a little bit more on the topic of scalability. So again, you may think Max already, played this earlier. No, this is him elaborating a little bit more about it. So just want to throw that out there. Here we go.
To the core ledger. Memory consumption is important, transaction throughput, IO efficiency, network usage, these kinds of things are extremely important. They make the system much more stable and they decrease the cost to run a node. But if a cost to run a node is high, then many people won't run their own nodes. That not only drives people out of the ecosystem, but it reduces decentralization because when you use other people's node, someone else's node, there's someone you're trusting. So we want to keep the cost to run a node low, and we also want to be able to add new features. Let's say we wanted to add hooks to mainnet. If we were right at the limit in terms of memory consumption and storage and IO, there's no way we could add a feature that sort of takes resources. The AMM takes resources. The NFT feature takes resources. If we're at the limit of what our technology can do, then we can't add features. So these improvements are extremely important. And on the other side is stability and robustness. This is about not accumulating bugs. Old code is going to break. New code is going to add bugs sometimes. We can't allow the bugs to sort of increase. So we fixed some node size estimation issues, an issue with sum totaling and gateway balances. We added the network ID field to prevent replay attacks, and we modernized the API to make it a little harder to shoot yourself in the foot, like not accepting the seed and the public key. Updates for newer compilers like Clang 16, fixes and markers, and other bug fixes. I know these are not as sexy as new features, but this is extremely important because if your code gets buggier and buggier and buggier, eventually it's going to fail catastrophically. Like you can't accumulate technical debt. The Conan recipe, Conan. What is good, Conan? To destroy your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentations of their women. Some of you might be old enough to know what I'm talking about. But Conan is fantastic. I've been developing on the XRP ledger for a very long time. Sometimes I have the wrong version of Boost. I have to install a certain version of RippleD needs a newer version of Boost. My system can't use the newer version of Boost, so I have to switch the version of Boost and switch it back. Oh, but NewDB needs an earlier version of Boost. Okay, what's a version of Boost that works with both? It's a nightmare. This figures out all of the dependencies for you, figures out all the versions that work, and automatically installs them just for RippleD. It is a huge quality of life improvement for developers. And if people are trying to develop sidechains and they're trying to integrate in their own tools, they would have to do the nightmare of figuring out what versions of everything their tools work with. It would be a nightmare. Conan does all of that for you.
So I want to talk about that for a brief moment. So basically, it's like, all right, if somebody said, well, what about all the projects that are basically already on C++? Great question, right? Well, this is the answer to that. Again, kind of like we was talking about earlier in regards to, what was it, the EVMs and so on, and not having to, or the plugins, right? Not having to be exclusive to one coding language like C++. I think he mentioned, Python and some of the other ones, right? So this also answers that as well, because let's face it, many years ago, there were projects that were building on this and so on. What about those? He has the answer in regards to those. So this will round off what we have in regards to the XRP coverage. Is almost over. There's only like 2 minutes left. I will play the rest of this because it is good stuff. Here we go.
And of course, libXRPL, which is really nice. This is a core library of RippleD for C++ projects, and it integrates with Conan recipes. So it'll find the right version of libXRPL for you and make everything work. This is extremely important. So a couple of near-term callouts. Talk about a little bit what's coming up ahead. Most of the things are things that I've already talked about. The AMM activation on mainnet, we hope, is coming up. We're excited about the EVM sidechain going live, hooks, and of course, more stability, security, and cost improvements. That's going to keep happening. So where can you go for more information? So here are some of the resources that you can look at, and there's a QR code. I'll give you some time to get that in a minute. The XRPL Foundation, our co-host for Apex, one of the biggest supporters of the XRP Ledger and an independent nonprofit. Thank you. The XRPL Commons, newly founded org in Paris, held by David Bachiri, who you're going to hear from very shortly. Companies, developers on their journeys, provides education, guidance, and resource. Again, big thank you to him and his group. The XRPL Viewer, where you can view the XRPL mainnet activity. There's many of them, but this is one. XRPL Grants and XRPL Accelerator. These are Ripple programs that cultivate newer developers to build on the XRP Ledger. The program managers are here, guys. You want to show off who you are? All right, they're hiding. Oh, wait, did I see someone? They're here. And of course, xrpl.org, which is where you can find general information about the Ledger. You can find me on Twitter. I guess it's called X now, at Joel Katz, JoelKatz. And please follow at RippleXDev, RippleXDev. To conclude, the future outlook of the XRP Ledger is bright, especially with the improvements and updates, but also with the developing crypto environment this year. I've enjoyed talking to you all. Thank you so much for coming. See you next year. And the QR code is right there.
So boom, there you go. Straight from the one and only Mr. David Schwartz. Glad to be able to share that with you guys. In closing, in conclusion, in regards to that segment, not closing of the show, I want to share my keynotes with you guys in regards to everything that was presented, but mainly on the part of the topic of EVM and the side chains that he was talking about. So, you know, for some of you guys who may not necessarily be the nerds who want to nerd it out, I want to share with you why this is important in regards to investor point of view and so on. So we were talking about EVM sidechain. We talked about obviously hooks. We talked about a lot of this other stuff, right? Some of the XRPL, was it plugins and whatnot. Back to the topic of EVM sidechain. So if you were wondering just exactly like how big is this market? How much is that market really worth, right? That's a good question. Everybody's wondering about some of that stuff. And, you know, I'd be asking that, you know, if I wasn't the type of guy to nerd it out. So bottom line is, according to my notes, that this market is worth approximately $5 billion. Now, how recent of a report is that? Well, as of October 8th, 2023, which is today. Kind of crazy, right? So this is basically, if you want where I'm pulling at, this is based off of the amount that, you know, on the TVL, the total value locked in EVM side chains. So that's a pretty accurate amount, $5 billion, right? And that's just based off of that, right? That doesn't count all the other things that we account for. I just wanted you guys to have an idea of how much that market is worth. It may not seem like that's a big deal, but again, getting more into the bull market, it is a big deal. And in regards to EVM sidechains, this measure of the total value of assets deposited, of course, in and staked on these platforms is how they pull that particular data, if you're wondering where we're getting some of those numbers. Now, if you're wondering, Max, well, what is the biggest EVM sidechain? Great question, right? It is Polygon. They have the most in total value locked. Hence, remember many months ago I said, watch out for Polygon, especially when it comes to ZK EVM update and compatibility. You know, in the future, especially in a bull market, Polygon is going to be a massive, big deal. And we did see a 300% increase in volume, but we didn't see a lot of price action. Again, guys, you got to keep in mind, just because there's an upgrade, it doesn't mean that's utility in motion. It's an upgrade. What about when we do get that utility in motion, especially in a bull market? Again, Polygon is another one that I feel as though don't sleep on your Polygon. Why mention Polygon? It's not ISO 222, correct, but it is part of the QFS, the quantum financial system. So getting more into this, there's other notable, of course, EVM sidechains. There's some of you guys are into Arbitrum. Shout out to Crypto Mike, Elon Musk. There's also Avalanche, also use EVM sidechains. And then, of course, there's also Phantom with an F. Now, Is the EVM sidechain market growing? Well, of course, right? Why would Ripple put so much emphasis and so much focus on EVM sidechains, right? Great statement, great question if you're wondering about that. This market basically is growing rapidly, and this is why I wanted to share it with you guys tonight to give you a broader sense of, like, hey Max, why you show all this nerdy stuff? David Schwartz, yeah, who cares, man? I just want to see when moon, right? Well, guys, you got to keep in mind there's other things to pay attention to other than just cross-border payments, right? As we know, the XRPL is so much bigger than just cross-border payments, right? There's a ton of things to get into, and this is one of the things I wanted to get into for you guys tonight. So yes, this market in regards to EVM sidechain is growing rapidly, as more and more developers and users are looking for ways to scale. Believe it or not, Ethereum, I know it sounds crazy, but people say, that's the way, right? But we do know that, for instance, like Ethereum, there's like, layer twos and so on, especially with what JASMY is trying to do. But say what you want. I'm not a big fan of Ethereum. They are apparently going to try to do something to reduce the gas fees, and there's multiple so-called solutions for it. I got to make this about Ethereum, so don't shoot me on this. But EVM sidechains offer a way to do this in regards to scalability and so on by providing a separate blockchain that is compatible, listen to this, with Ethereum smart contracts in particular. A little bit more in regards to my notes. This means, if you're wondering about it, that developers can deploy their existing Ethereum dApps, as in decentralized apps, to an EVM sidechain without having to make any changes whatsoever. That's game changer stuff. And users can interact with them basically in the same way. Now, in regards to a little bit more in regards to the EVM sidechain market, because again, I want to, get your attention in regards to some of you guys who are just regular retail investors and don't necessarily care about all the nerdy stuff. The EVM sidechain market is still, of course, in its early stages in development, but it does have the potential to exponentially grow significantly in the coming years. So right now, as we speak, $5 billion in that market in TVL, total value locked. Again, we're still technically speaking in the bear market / crypto winter. So that's something you want to pay attention to. Now, as Ethereum continues to supposedly scale, EVM sidechains will play, of course, an important role in providing users with a fast and affordable way to interact with what Ethereum decentralized apps, dApps. Now, this last part, and it is important to note that total value locked of EVM sidechains can, of course, fluctuate significantly, of course, based on the market. Yeah, no kidding, right? And here's an example. So we talked about Polygon earlier. They're the ones that have the most TVL locked, right, in regards to their EVM sidechains. And you also got to keep in mind that the TVL of Polygon fell by over 50% in the first half of 2022, due, of course, to crypto winter, right? Yeah, no kidding. However, this last part, the total value locked of EVM sidechains has started to recover, of course, in recent months, and is expected to continue to grow in the long term. So again, here at Maximus Crypto, I want to keep you guys informed on not just the concept of cross-border payments and so on, and don't get me wrong, that's big, it's huge, right? When moon. But at the same time, I want you to also pay attention to some of the other technologies and the other things going on on the side, no pun intended, right? EVM sidechains, right? You get that? I think you do. With that said, it's been a pleasure to bring you guys this info tonight in regards to some updates and knowledge in regards to the XRPL and keep you informed. If you appreciate the content that we bring you guys on basically a daily basis, please smash that like, make sure you sub and hit that bell notification.